We think of butterflies as fragile, but they may be more resilient than we are. At least more resilient than I am. I can't cross the Atlantic in a week. So, did these painted lady butterflies manage it? And if so, how? This is a painted lady butterfly, or Vanessa cardui. I know it sounds strange that the painted lady is called Vanessa, but it's a genus of butterflies. It's probably named for a Jonathan Swift poem. All the red admirals and painted ladies are named Vanessa. Painted lady butterflies are a widespread species. They can be found in virtually any temperate zone on all continents except South America beyond its northernmost edge, and in Antarctica. And in fairness, I don't think anything on Antarctica reasonably qualifies as a temperate zone. Well, but I should really rephrase. They were found on every continent except South America and Antarctica. After all, painted ladies had rarely been observed in the Caribbean and in northern Colombia and Venezuela, so maybe their range was more extensive than we thought. On October 28th, 2013, a group of entomologists from the Institut Botanique de Barcelona were on a fieldwork trip to French Guyana, which is a hotspot for 1,205 different butterfly species, most of them tropical, and a couple thousand kilometers from the closest reported observation of a painted lady. So, if the painted lady's range was larger than previously reported, this seemed to them to be a pretty solid place to look for new samples. And indeed, on a survey, walking up and down the beach at sunrise, field researchers found 10 painted ladies resting on the Guyanese beach just a few meters from the waterline, their wings worn as if from a long trip. Perhaps it was a moment of serendipity, a rare event, and experts on butterflies and their migratory habits had put themselves there and got lucky enough to see it. On the other hand, maybe shocking, unexpected observations like these are more common than we know. After all, if I were on a beach and saw some butterflies, I'd be like, oh, pretty, butterflies. But I wouldn't immediately recognize that these butterflies had never been spotted in this locale or even most of this continent before. Now, that said, many butterfly species are strong migrators, and painted ladies are among that number. Monarchs travel 3,000 miles, or roughly 5,000 kilometers, each way north and south across North America. Painted ladies may not do as many round trips, but they're known for regularly crossing all those continents they're found on, making awe-inspiring migrations from the African tropical region through the Palearctic, which encompasses all of Eurasia and northern Africa. Their 8,000 to 9,000 mile, or 14,000 to 15,000 kilometer migrations are so extensive that it is a multi-generational journey. In an interview a couple years ago, Talavera, the senior author on this paper, said they migrate to, quote, seek an eternal spring. Excuse me. I was not prepared for that level of poetry from a bug scientist. That's beautiful. What the heck? Remember, these researchers, including Talavera, were out here on this fieldwork to see if the American painted ladies' territory extended farther beyond North and Central America. Now they had found these butterflies, next thing you're going to want to do is confirm they're North American painted ladies, then you turn around, you publish painted ladies are found here, maybe contrast American painted ladies' migration patterns to European African painted ladies, boom. There's a solid entomology paper. And indeed, our researchers sequenced the butterfly's genome to compare to 126 samples from North America, Europe, and Africa. As you might infer from those African-European migration patterns we talked about, those populations of painted ladies have tons of genetic overlap, while the North American painted ladies are quite genetically distinct because, butterflies don't usually fly across the ocean. But that's where this whole project started going in an unexpected direction. Our painted ladies were unambiguously genomically clustered with the European African population cluster, not the North American, ruling out the possibility that those painted ladies had arrived on that beach as a product of overland migration from North America. See? Told you at the top. This is a transatlantic voyage. But the genetics alone are circumstantial evidence, so these scientists combine that with additional techniques to make their case. To identify the butterfly's birthplace, they sampled isotopes of strontium and hydrogen in the butterfly's wings. Isotopes are atoms of the same element with different numbers of neutrons, and in different parts of the world, there can be different proportions of lighter or heavier isotopes. And since animals are made up of matter from their locale, the isotope signature of chemicals stored in their bodies can tell you where they were born. In this case, when combining isotope signature with likely breeding grounds for painted ladies in September or October of 2013, that signature seemed to point to Europe. So now we think our mysterious painted ladies are from the European African population and were likely born in or around Western Europe. But these ladies are big migrators, so just because they were born in Europe doesn't mean they flew direct from Europe to the beach in French Guyana. Now, our researchers used one more technique to figure out not where they were born, but where they had recently been. And it's an established approach in butterfly migration research, but I still think it's brilliant. They genome sequenced the pollen on the butterfly's wings. The plant pollen, because, they land on the plants. For the most part, the identified species didn't point to any specific region, but they also found 2 sub-Saharan African plant species that are fairly specific, both of which are flowering in West Africa from August to November, meaning they could have been a source of nectar for our butterflies if they were there around September to October. Now, none of these pieces in isolation would have been dispositive, but when you put them together, it makes a strong case that these butterflies took a transatlantic trip. But a voyage that length would be one of the longest ever documented by individual insects, and, quote, potentially the first verified transatlantic crossing by individual insects. After all, there's a big difference between the classic monarch migrations or other painted ladies migrations versus the trip those jet-lagged painted ladies must have made to that Guyanese beach. All those typical migrations happen over land. Butterflies are small. They're flapping their little wings. And during migrations, butterflies frequently stop and refuel. If these had been North or Central American butterflies, that's certainly possible. And though painted ladies aren't frequent flyers in the regions immediately nearby French Guiana, a North American origin would have at least allowed these painted ladies to stop for gas, or, well, for nectar, I guess, along the way. So I wanted to know. You wanted to know. And our researchers certainly wanted to know how. If they had to flap their whole butterfly way across the ocean, there's not a chance they'd have the energy. There's no Taco Bell flower or Nectar King in the middle of the ocean. They would have to have such favorable winds that they barely had to flap at all. So, did they? Let's check the weather. See, because it's difficult to tell you what the weather will be tomorrow. But it's very, very easy to show you what it was yesterday, especially if you are, like our researchers, using models from NOAA's Air Resources Laboratory. Looking at wind speeds at multiple altitudes in the days leading up to the Painted Lady's landing, these scientists calculated the winds were favorable enough that the butterflies, which can glide on the winds at up to 48 kilometers per hour, or 30 miles per hour, could have made a trip from West Africa in about 5 to 8 days, making it energetically possible that the fittest butterflies could have made the trip. Now, is it possible that the butterflies just hitched a ride on a boat or something? Well, their wings might not have been so worn if they'd been able to take a break like that and just kind of piggybacked, and they might have been more likely to be found near a port than right by the waterline on the beach. But it's true. We can't totally say for sure. Migration patterns are much harder to track with insects than with larger species. After all, can't put a GPS tag on a butterfly. And these painted ladies had already arrived at their destination, so either way, the time had long since passed. But when you put all the circumstantial evidence together, this paper makes a pretty convincing case that these butterflies did something extraordinary. Cross the Atlantic. Which raises the possibility that this may not be a miraculous one-off, but an example of long-distance dispersal and insect migration that we simply hadn't observed before. In fact, there could be more transoceanic insect migrations than we could ever have thought. After all, for every fieldwork trip for entomologists like these, there are zillions of miles of beach that go completely unobserved. With a wider reconnaissance network, we might find more examples across more species. So I think we're going to need to post up more entomologists on beaches. But those researchers can only be in so many places at once. And this is a place where citizen science can play a big role. Multiple authors on this paper and their institutions also collaborate on a global citizen science project that tracks painted lady butterfly migrations around the world. If you're interested, by the way, there's an app, and you can learn more at butterflymigration.org. Let me know what you spot. And say hi to the painted ladies for me.